do we want to define it by like actual boundaries, like within St. John, or are we gonna do we want to maybe do this by a by property basis?
Well, I think, why don't we start in the, what's running along 41 in the TIF district. If you're all in agreement, we can start there. That's the businesses that I know of that are in the community. But I don't want to leave anybody out either, but
I think when we were first looking at this, we were talking about the TIP district and also extending to
down Joliet. Yeah.
to the
So
tracks.
if we can add the 41 TIF district to this and Joliet Street. And I think we should also, maybe for this first year, try to put a cap on it so we know exactly what we have to work with, because I have not been given that from our council members yet. And some projects are going to run more than others, so we may crawl before we get into it. I don't know if Brian, Mr. Blazak wants to give us a lot of money for that. I don't know, but
Looks like the page 3 of Crown Point shows their breakdowns.
yep. Now, do you think we should do a percentage like that, Rob?
I mean, I would like to do a percentage only so that we can add a extra percentage for the use of in-town businesses.
Uh-huh.
For, say for instance, someone used Schilling Lumber or used Alsip for whatever they're using for the front of the facade. An additional discount if they're using an in-town business. Because I like how I think Hammond was,
10%?
I think 10% is Crown Point. I think Hammond was different.
it,
I think they did the same, didn't they?
It was about 10%.
Well, they,
Yeah, it's extra incentive.
but Hammond was, for the first 10,000, 40%, and then plus 10 if they used a local
Yeah.
business. Is that how you read it, too?
Yeah. Yeah, and I
Okay.
think Crown Point is similar, if not the same.
Yeah.
Yes.
And is everybody comfortable with those numbers? I mean,
We'll have
you
to
get
cap
into the 20 to 50,000, I can tell you right now, we don't have the money for any of that, for even at,
Yeah.
20% of 100 grand, it's a lot of dough.
So
So,
what are we looking at for a proposed start?
well, I would like us to,
Yeah, excuse me, John. I
Yeah.
can't off the top of my head just throw a number
Yeah.
out there because our budget is in effect locked in this year.
Yeah.
So, we would have to get proper planning and maybe discuss it so that we can decide what kind of money we might be needing so that we can see if we can squeeze it into next year's budget.
so what,
The budget's locked in and.
why don't we, for the first go-around, limit total funds to $10,000?
I would say that's a low estimate, yes, that'd be just.
Well, and then we can grow from there. I mean, nothing's written in stone. If the council members decide we need to do landscaping down 41 once that all gets developed, or extra flower pots on,
Well, we're gonna try as part of our development on the 41 corridor.
Yep.
And with the state coming in, putting the new roads in next year,
Yep.
year after, we're already asking them, they're gonna want us to pay for the lighting and such, but we wanna put in decorative lighting while they're doing the road, might as well.
You're going to do that ahead of time.
Exactly, we'll do that ongoing.
Okay.
So we're planning on it as being part of the road improvement, and then we're going to add it as we go, like 96th and so on and so forth, moving south we would consider adding more lighting and such to try and clean 41, give it a better, nicer look.
So what we could do is we could leave the rebate schedule, compensation schedule fluid for now, and also leave the execution of the document as amendable.
Okay?
So what could happen is if someone gets approved for X amount of money, and it goes through, they've completed whatever they were looking to complete, but yet there's something that doesn't look right, or something wasn't finished properly, they could open the issue again with the town, with us, and amend the existing application. And then it will go for another round of approval.
Sure. Now, Brian, when we get this completed, will the applicant have to go to planning and zoning and the building department where Mr. Mendoza is at? How are you going to work this on the town level?
I would think that'd be best, don't you?
Prior to applying?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, if that's the process, the procedures, my experience has been that the application usually starts at like a Historic Preservation Commission or something at the planning level, and then it gets refined and then presented at the redevelopment or economic.
So we're going to develop this for planning and zoning and have that available? Is that, we're just going to have the document and then planning and zoning will take over that? Who's going to decide who gets those funds?
It would be the.
Will this be this committee?
Yes, I would think so.
I would think that a recommendation would go to the council probably.
Is that how it works? Okay.
I would, yeah,
From
in
this
most
committee?
cases.
From this committee?
This committee would put its recommendation in to
Got
the
it.
town council, and we in turn would vote on it. I'll bounce it off of Dave at the point we need a final decision. Have Dave Westland take a look at it and give
Okay.
us his thumbs up or thumbs down.
Okay. So what I would like to see then is, once this document is done, that we can do the reviews here through our committee work, and then turn it over to planning and zoning, and then it goes to Mr. Mendoza, and then with our recommendation of who we think, but we really can't do anything because planning and zoning is going to decide, right?
Well, basically, it's not
Or is this gonna be a
planning
separate
commission.
issue?
It's not a planning commission set up. It's more or less for your expertise. That's your
right.
input.
Ideally, if there is a applicant who is interested in obtaining these rebates or funds, there is a punch list or an outline of what the requirements are, particularly the design requirements, the design guidelines. And then the applicant, once they submit all the supporting documents and it's felt that it meets all the requirements, then it can be presented ideally to the commission here to do the final review and recommendation to the.
Okay.
In other
So-
words, the commission wouldn't be reviewing it for content as much as outcome, ultimate outcome. In other words, the recommendation isn't gonna be built on crossing all the Ts and dotting all the Is. They'll cover that for us.
Okay.
Agree?
Yeah, that's ideally.
Because I wanted to have some kind of control over that, because a lot of these folks are volunteering their time and putting a lot of work into it. It's nice to see all that come to fruition when it's all completed.
Well, and expertise is more important as
Right.
far as the actual document itself and
Right.
what's gonna be done and whether it's proper and fits into the town ordinances per se or the building code.
Now, Mr. Mendoza, in your prior work life, did they hand checks out, or is just turned into the town hall? Is it like a presentation, here's $2,000 for this business?
So it was a reimbursement, my experience, I worked for the city of Hobart.
You're gonna have to speak to the microphone, sorry. So I worked for the city of Hobart for a total of 12 years with a 5-year sabbatical working for the state of Indiana as a planner. And so the experience has been that when an applicant wants to use TIF funds for historic preservation or redevelopment of a site, they receive
A rebate?
a rebate essentially. And so the applicant has to do all the work up front and then get reimbursed that way. As part of the reimbursement agreement, they have to submit, there's agreement that is signed. They have to submit all the supporting documents, receipts showing the work that was done, how much of the work is actually qualified for that, and then
And how long does that take?
it really, I think they put a 6-month time limit on that to submit everything.
To submit?
Yes.
But then how long does it take for that property owner to get their funds to help them with the project?
It would just fall in line with the meeting dates of the council and then the release of the funds from the clerk treasurer's office.
I would guess 30 days, probably on the far side.
Okay, all right.
Normally, when the council approves payments of items, we sign off on it that night.
Right.
When the approval's written, and normally, if the checks haven't been written, they get written the next day, and they've already been approved, therefore, they should be able to go out relatively quick. Let me
Now,
clarify.
here's what I'm thinking. Just for the PR of it, would it be nice to have this committee, members from the committee, hand that person a
Absolutely.
check?
Sure.
You know?
Anything to add to not only the work being done, call attention to it, but at the same time, the fact that the town is supporting these improvements and this development of sorts, therefore, yes, to make a public
Well-
acceptance and handing the money to them.
And I really think that could fuel other businesses to say, hey, look what
because
St.
they would-
John's doing.
Yeah, they would see
Yeah.
the
So-
notoriety and the whole display of their presentation in public.
So do you see any hurdles to do that type of a thing? Instead of just giving it to the
One thing,
applicant?
I'll do this in public simply for transparency reasons.
Yeah.
You use the words TIF. Are you saying that the TIF funds for the overlay district, in reality, the 41 corridor, the 231 corridor, it makes those funds available to do this?
That's how my experience has been in using.
What I needed an answer to.
We, when we implemented the facade grant in the historic downtown, it was from the TIF money that was coming in from a light industrial area that was connected to the downtown. And so over the years, that piggy bank, I should say, grew. And then we implemented the implementation of the facade grant was kind of rolled out. And so that's where the funding would come from.
Was there any special consideration for this type of improvements? Or is this just the rules, regulations, and law applies the same to that, to let's say a brand-new development building or, a new,
It was a tool used to help bring the facades into compliance of appropriately architecturally designed building. It wasn't for a new construction or a vacant building. There's the options for vacant building deductions. There's other opportunities.
Lighted areas?
Yes, yeah, to look into. But
Yeah.
this is strictly for, can you bring this property into compliance or?
We
their
don't have
appearance.
to apply to the town council then for 10,000 or 15,000. We could actually, if we.
I believe we're still gonna have to get approval to release that TIF money.
Right, but I mean, it's not a special check for that. We can take it out of the TIF money.
That's the reason why I asked the question I did publicly, because that means that we're not going to be at taxpayers' expense. It's going to be at the town's TIF fund expense.
taxpayer.
Which the tax input comes to, but not directly to the town. That TIF fund stays in its own particular account, and that money is spent out of there by law, and therefore he knows basically what would need to be accomplished in order for us to move ahead on any project, which also changes the structure, and correct me if I'm wrong, changes the structure of getting the money and what might be available. Yes?
Yep.
There'd be more money available if you're using TIF.
My point is, yes, we can't we don't have to arbitrarily set
Right.
a value now.
Right.
we could look at the project and see what the impact is to the overall look, so on and so forth.
Can that limit our zone, though? I mean, we
Oh,
wanted
no, I agree with that, but I'm just saying that this doesn't lock us into a yearly number of like, okay, $7,000 for this, or 10 grand, or 15.
It may, depending on the
nice-
zone, though. So for instance, if we were, the 41 corridor, I think most of it is a TIF district.
It's
But I'm
all
not
one.
sure about Joliet.
It's what?
Is that part of Joliet included in that TIF?
It goes down only so far,
Okay.
all right?
Well, does it go to the railroad track?
It has to go at
I
least,
don't think so.
because you have to go that far.
But here again, this'll be up to the planning and building department to say, this is inside or outside the zone.
So, the TIF funds can be used within the TIF area. So anything outside of that cannot be used to help support a facade grant.
So we may
If you're
need
using TIF
secondary
funds.
source of funding
Yes.
for,
If we needed it.
for depending on
For
the,
special use.
Right.
All right, so we should have some language in there for special use approved by town council and this committee. I don't know.
What, were you thinking about just to the railroad tracks?
Well, my thought is if that road is completed, which it's almost done, by this summer it'll be complete.
Oh, you
And
mean
it-
through the 96 shops on 96?
Yes, but then what if that starts developing
Right.
241? You have to, is it hard to make another TIF zone?
The current TIF map is now on the screen for you to.
Say that again?
The current TIF map is on the screen for you to look at.
That's what's included in the TIF zone.
So it is in there.
Does it,
no, the north side of Joliet is not on it.
Ah,
But most of that is residential.
okay, so maybe we should do that by a case-by-case basis
Oh,
if something
absolutely.
comes up there.
Absolutely.
But how,
Oh, that is a track. So there is.
I'm sure at some point, these people, whoever may come in to do this application, are gonna have questions to start with. His department will be the most obvious choice to where they start with the questions, and he should be able to decide at that point what's legally within the boundaries and what needs maybe special consideration. He'll know that before.
then that could be referred back to this
Right,
committee.
exactly.
Okay.
So as part of your policies and procedures for the TIF and facade grant, you can identify which projects would be ineligible and which ones would be eligible for consideration.
All right.
That's why we rely on his group, his team, to come up with the answers. It's important.
And if you receive more than one application, there is the opportunity to, let's say, rank the projects and say, this year, unfortunately, we're not able to fund you for this. However, next year, if we keep the ranking system the way it is, or another project comes in as a priority, or does not, then at least you've got the opportunity to be considered for next year.
That brings up another good point. We're going to need a way to actually rank the projects. I mean, I'm assuming we're not going to be able to review applications as they're coming in because of the times that we meet.
Right.
So whatever we have at a given time, maybe we could look at the applications and rank them based on age, need, things like that. And I was also thinking, is there anything that we need to do to get the BZA up to speed? Are they going to need to be involved in this process a lot?
So the only time that the BZA would be involved in this is if there is a request for a developmental standard variance, if they're making an addition that may encroach into a setback or a side yard, and I need to digest further the current policies or guidance that we have here in the town as it relates to commercial districts. But that's the only time the BZA would be involved in this, as long as the applicant complies with the guidelines and the design outlooks.
And basically, if the building exists, correct me if I'm wrong, if the building already exists, 9 times out of 10, they'd be grandfathered in anything that might impact the facade improvement.
Of this is to start changing the look of some of the existing structures, and this is a tool or an incentive to allow them to do that within the corridors that you're looking for, not necessarily for new construction. I mean, a new construction comes in, they're going to comply with the standards, and you'll start piecing that look together.
Now, I know you're relatively just on the job here, but have you identified any homes or
He
stores that
hasn't
you'd like
really,
to?
really had the time to.
They keep me
even
locked
get
up in
into
the back.
Come on, let the guy out. Let him in the community.
I only unlock them to come to meetings.
Oh,
Other than
there you
that, I
go.
lock 'em back up.
So, you know.
All right, well, if there's something that town management has seen first, I mean, certainly we would like to, look at that as a starting point anyway.
We could also, hit up code enforcement to see if there was anything on their radar.
Right, right.
That's a good point, because if code enforcement approaches them, they could say, there's this opportunity that's coming in, down the pike that you might want to look into, kind of bring into compliance, and then change the facade or the outlook of the structure itself, so.
Very good, very good.
If you're using TIF funds, do you need a redevelopment agreement, or will what we're putting together suffice?
Ideally, you're going to want a development agreement in place. So as part of the guidelines, then you want to have a legal document which outlines that the property owner, as it transitions, should it transition to another property owner, it is maintained as approved for at least a minimum of set years, maybe 10 years. And then so they legally are required to maintain what the Economic Development Commission is paid for and used through TIF, so.
Yeah, if you look further on the page titled with mortgage information, there's a lot of that information out there.
What
It lists-
page are you on?
I believe it's the final page. It does have an other required documentation area,
Yeah,
and that lists a lot of this.
right.
The other documents? Yep.
Yeah.
Well, the Crown Point really has done their homework on this. I mean, this is really a good one to follow here.
They've got some impressive changes that they've made on the square.
Yeah.
And done some really, really nice stuff. Valpo's done a lot of the same thing, wouldn't you agree, Sergio?
Yes, they, those two communities, along with Hobart, operate at both. They have the other tool that they have to pair this or marry this with is the
Sure.
historic district. So they both have national registry, all three communities have national registry markers as well as local designations, so.
I think
So
that's what we're suffering. We just don't have a big historic district.
Who doesn't?
We don't here.
No, no, I think what St. John has is more site-specific or single-site historic districts.
The church and so on.
Yeah, there's some homes, probably some churches that are, I think very site-specific, so.
Yeah, we don't have any real areas. The only one that I would consider anything close to that would be the Patterson early on, the Victorian sitting on the corner. That beautiful house is, is pretty old, I would gather.
Well, if you don't mind, and maybe some of us can get together with you and kind of review some of the ins and outs to make sure that we're following the TIF guidelines before we put it into a document. We could ask your advice on that, if you wouldn't mind.
No,
spending
absolutely.
a little bit of time with us on that.
Absolutely. I'll need some, I'll need to familiarize myself with the St. John TIF and the guidelines in there, so.
And then we should also think about the secondary funding source
Yep,
for one-offs.
yep.
Yeah, now that will be impacted by the council's input.
Right.
Because secondary has nothing to do with the TIF.
The other idea could be, as well as this begins to get legs and crawl and before it starts running, is possibly identifying some specific sites. Because there's a lot of development, current development within the TIF that may not need facade grant, but maybe identifying what parcels would be the most in need of this type of opportunity. So.
Very good.
There's other languages you can include in there. For example, one of the things that we have is, or I'm used to or accustomed to doing, is that if a contractor owns a business and they want to do their own work, you know, how do you validate the work that they're submitting for the cost? And so as part of those requirements, they say, well, you also have to submit 2 other contractors' quotes for the same work so that we can comparatively see, you know, the work that you're proposing and the cost versus, let's say, a competitor's same work and cost. So you don't get someone coming here saying, it's going to cost me $1 million to do this.
Right.
Oh, yeah,
So,
yeah. Okay. All right, we have a lot of additions to put in on this document here, but thank you very much for your input here.
it won't take very long, I think, in the sense that the wheels are already here. It's just kind of making some modifications.
And what do you think your timeline is for us to get together for a short meeting to kind of review some of these things?
Hopefully,
A year from Tuesday. Good. Thanks, Brian.
hopefully in 30 days, we can, within a 30-day timeframe,
Yeah.
we can kind of start looking at this and digest, or at least outlining the direction this should look.
Yeah.
You know, aside from some of the building and planning issues that we're working through or towards, we're also looking at some personnel issues and so forth. So it's many layers of things that are happening right now. And so ideally, if we can get a meeting within the next 30 days, ideally maybe before the next EDC meets,
Okay.
and at least have some public discussion on it.
Okay, I appreciate that. We'll try to get together then, maybe before the next meeting. We'll set a time, and the board members that want to do that, I think we have to, is there a rule on?
Yeah, we'll
how
have
many?
to announce it.
Is it 3? 3 or
48.
4 people? Or you can't have the whole committee there, right? Is that how it works?
Well,
It's not public.
you're not the town council.
Right.
We're not.
Yeah, I think it's town council more than 2 or something like that.
Well, yes, it's a quorum shouldn't be together. However, this is not a, what would you call, I don't want to say it's not a legal body. It's not a
Advisory.
voting,
We're an advisor
you're an
position.
advisory committee, therefore,
So
there
what's
should
the
be
rules
no-
on that, so we
I
don't get ourselves
yeah,
in
To my
trouble?
knowledge, I can bounce it off tonight off
Yeah.
Dave. I would bet that doesn't have an impact.
All right. So if you find that question out for us,
Sure.
and then when, just before our next meeting, if we can get together for maybe an hour and kind of run through the application and put our additions to it, and then at our meeting, we can present the application for final review from the committee to add or subtract some other things. And then we'll see once if we can move it forward, then for you have a document, because I don't believe we have anything in town right now.
No. I
That's
haven't- I have
why,
not
that's
seen
why we're doing this, so. All right. Thank you. Thank you very much. Now, I do have the opportunity to get
Thanks, sir.
Mr. Terpstra to come to our next meeting or the following meeting to talk about how it was to work with St. John and to talk about his project, bringing Culvers to town. So,
And the long lines waiting to get hamburgers.
yeah, well, good for him, right?
Yes.
But if we can get those things in the public, I believe that it will just spur more good businesses and interest in coming here. So that's the idea of trying to get him to come, and he's agreed. I just got to make sure his schedule, because he flies in and out a lot of times, so. But I will update the whole committee as soon as we find out, so, all right. Is everybody happy with the direction of this application?
Yeah.
Yeah, are you?
I think it's a very positive step in the right direction, John.
Okay, all right,
Very, very, very well accepted.
okay. Anybody have any other comments on this at the moment?
And I think we're in a climate now to be able to bring businesses over from Illinois, so something like this would be
Yeah.
beneficial in the news.
Yeah.
We're getting inquiries from the state of, people from the state of Illinois wanting to move out of Illinois, not only for their real estate taxes, but I guess for their corporate and business taxes as well. So there is more interest afoot.
Good, good.
So if TIF funds can be used, then is there a likelihood this could be implemented this year, or we're still looking at next year?
This, with his input, if the TIF money is going to be available, then we'll have to check with the powers that be, which would be Miss Beth and the clerk's department, so on and so forth, to see the available monies. Because with the project on 96, Shops on 96 project, that's eating a dramatic amount of TIF money, and I'm not acquainted currently with the current figures of what kind of funds, if any, are left available until that project wraps up. And hopefully when we get that road done this summer, fall, because they're supposed to start in the spring. So when does spring come? Who knows? This is the Northwest.
Are you able to find out how much money is left?
Well, I can get a ballpark number, probably.
That's fine.
Yeah. I'm sure it isn't peanuts, but at the same time, I don't want to.
Well, we don't have a project yet
Right,
either,
right.
but, you know, there may be some things coming for, you know, the summer that we can spruce up and maybe kind of push forward a little bit for, with recommendations from the committee here, so. Okay, good enough. All right, does anybody else have anything else to add here to the facade and beautification project?
Would we want to put a date for, like, say you're going to apply and it opens up, that we have to have a cutoff so that you would gather everything together and do it at a meeting? I mean, like, you know, they might come in every week or something. Do you have should we put a cutoff date? I realize you'd have to wait till you see when we're going to get the funds and when we could distribute them, but
Let's refer that to the next meeting,
Okay.
because if we find out from Mr. Blazak there's no money,
it doesn't matter.
doesn't matter on the cutoff date,
Okay.
so if,
Fair enough.
I thought they had some built into their,
unless the bank is
Program.
giving out free money.
oh yeah, not yet,
Oh, they don't do that yet?
not yet.
All right.
All right, John, this is Carl. It was my understanding, I mean, I would be very eager to work through a study session. It was my understanding that the entire EDC could work together in a study session as long as we provide a 48-hour public notice.
I'll have to bounce that off Dave, Carl. I can't answer you sitting here currently.
Okay.
Oh,
I
you
just
can?
think it would really speed up the work.
Okay. Well, Jason's basically saying that covers anything and everything, so we would not be amiss if we just did it because.
Okay. And you'd be available to give your input too if we sit with
I'll
Mr.
do my
Mendoza?
best.
Huh?
I'll do my best, but I count on him for his expertise. so.
Very good. Very good.
I'd like to add one more thing. I think, you know, as we go along through the process, you know, John, you mentioned earlier about having to get the word out so that, you know, people know about this and just the community in general know about this. So I think we need to keep the marketing of this in mind. So as we go through certain processes, we might, you know, want to take photos or videos or anything like that. So, you know, when we come down to that time to really putting it out there in the public and doing some PR, you know, that we have a record of everything that we did to kind of build this program for the town. I think that's going to be important to keep in mind as we go forward.
Okay. I like that idea.
You know, that does bring up a point too. Do we have any PDF versions of this?
I believe there is.
I think there's something on the website.
I think so too.
There is, okay.
Mhm.
Okay, we're going to move on to any reports from the members. Kelly, you got anything to tell us about the bank or anything new happening?
Isn't there a free money day next
Yeah,
week?
Free money day, boy, we're really honing in on that. It's near free money right now, isn't it?
Yeah.
It sure is.
No updates at this time.
No? Carl, do you have anything?
No updates, sir.
Okay, Joey?
No, sir.
Okay,
No.
Joe? Rob?
No, nothing.
I guess we're all good today, so. We do have a guest in the audience. Any public comment? Nope?
I'm just here to observe, thank you.
Well, we're glad you came to our humble committee here, so. But,
See you again.
Good.
well, you're welcome, so. Mr. Mendoza, thank you very much for coming to our meeting. So, at this point, then, I'd like to make a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
So
I'll
moved.
second.
Second. Meeting adjourned.